Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today I'm playing for your pleasure the IJN Sendai, and this will be a great battle, except that's just not the case. And the phrase, that's just not the case, you will hear quite often throughout the entirety of the video. This ship could be cool, this ship could be fun, and this is a ship that I like in the sense of an early cruiser, right? And it could be fun fighting alongside the IJN Kuma versus the likes of the other 5.0 and even some 5.3 cruisers. The USS Trenton, USS Raleigh, for the Germans the Emden, for the Soviets the Krasny Kavkaz and Krasny Krim, for the British an entire cruiser line, the HMS Enterprise, the HMS Dido, the HMS Arethusa, and even occasional fighting the HMS ZS Leander would be fun. But that's just not the case, because I swear to God, I think all of the battles except this one, I got up-tiered versus the 5.7s, and that ain't fun. So in this battle, I'm fighting the very best battle, except that's just not the case, because I was very lucky with the matchmaker, and I just went straight for the middle, seal clubbing some patrol boats, occasionally a cruiser here and there, and you know, that's just what the ship does best, fighting inferior ships, except that's rarely the case. Because matchmaker. So Naval Forces is kind of a dead game mode, and it could be successful, it could be fun, it could be glorious, it could be one of the absolute winners for War Thunder, except that's not the case because Gaijin screwed it up despite all the warning that I gave them officially with my videos and also making suggestions on a certain Discord. So that problem with the ship is I would really love to love it. I would talk about every single detail about how great the guns could be and how it is challenging versus certain other cruisers, but where your advantages lie, and also about the armor layout, about the speed, the maneuverability, the secondaries, the torpedoes would actually set it apart from the predecessor, the IJN Kuma, because you have the glorious long lances, except that's not the case because it's mostly irrelevant. Because if you spawn like, what, 8, 9, 10 kilometers away from the German 5.7 cruisers, they just look your direction and you're gonna explode violently after a queue time of what, 5 to 10 minutes? That's sadly the case. Also, I wanted to say that, you know, with this low battle rating, having as many up tiers and as down tiers, the stock grind would be kind of doable, except it's not the case. Again, because you get all the time up tiered versus 5.7s, and also fighting in a cruiser without the necessary base modifications like the tool scent and the fire protection system, it's absolutely awful. Also, you don't have any sort of armor piercing when you're stock, you only have high explosive. And you know, it's great to have 140mm high explosive versus destroyers, except you're fighting heavily armed cruisers all the time. So, yeah. And you can see, that is not the battle that I want to fight. I don't want to seal club patrol boats because that is not challenging. Also, most of them aren't even players, they are bots. And not just is it really not that challenging to fight them and repetitive and boring, but also the RP and civil line income when killing them is not all that great. So again, I would love to show this ship in battle. I would love to show a good entry cruiser, except that's just not the case. The problem with the ship is not that the ship is bad. Again, it's a case of that Gaijin implemented it badly. With insane power creep, with just awful enemies, with a dead game mode basically. I also want to show you how good it is in Enduring Confrontation, except that's not the case because currently Enduring Confrontation isn't accessible. I hope it to return for the weekend, because, you know, sad face at my end that it isn't there, and surprise Pikachu face at Gaijin headquarters. What do you mean nobody is playing Naval Forces? I've warned Gaijin about those things in the past, and sadly I was right with this game mode not being really all that desirable for most players. Don't get me wrong, many things are really great when it works, when you have a good battle, which is rare, but it can happen, don't get me wrong. It's the best that there is. It's deeply satisfying. I love the idea behind this game mode. I love the idea of, you know, the modular damage system and so many other things, and also the variety in naval forces. Except most of the ships are completely irrelevant because, just like with planes, just like with tanks, it's a handful of relevant vehicles and the rest is just trash, gun food, and just hinders you on your way to the top, or is deliberately put in there to extend the grind. And that is also about the grind. In this battle, which was probably the most successful in terms of kills assist, and also winning the game, which helps quite a lot with the civilian and RP gain, you know, I made a ton of RP and civilian, except that's not the case. Again, because I think a lot of the kills were bots, and, you know, the reward for naval forces is not good. It's not good. So that's another point. So what we have is disastrous stock grind, disastrous matchmaking, disastrous meta, and just a ship that is dead on arrival. And that, sadly, is the case. I warned Gaijin throughout the years that such disastrous actions would have consequences, and they didn't listen to me. In fact, now in retrospect, it looks like they were panicking. They were panicking once they realized that the Mosquito fleet, as they call it, was a failure. And they blamed it on the patrol boat, except that wasn't the case. It was the awful implementation. And the next thing is, then they just overdid it with the implementation. Instead of gradually implementing one cruiser after the other, in terms of slowly stepping up in terms of combat capability, you know, firepower, armor protection, and other usages such as the speed, and also the torpedoes, and also the AAA or secondaries. No. Within a handful of patches, they just overbuffed Germany. I love Germany to be powerful, but I never want any nation, including Germany, to be the ultra dominating nation, because it just destroys the fun for everybody. And so that is again the case. Very often people forget when I rant that I love the game, that I wouldn't play it for now approaching 7 years. 7 years of playing a game, if I wouldn't really love the core idea behind it, which I do. And War Thunder was amazing, it was promising in the start, and it still could be salvaged, it still could be the greatest online game that there is, except that's not the case. And so I think it's not impossible to salvage War Thunder. It's not impossible to make it awesome and good. It's not impossible to really make a winner out of this. I just have the thought, I'm deeply convinced in fact, that Gaijin doesn't really want it to, or the responsible people are not capable of. They are capable of creating a beautiful looking game. Beautiful looking 3D models. But balance? Playability even? No, that's just not the case. So there you have it. A beautiful ship, a ship worth really researching and enjoying, except that's not the case. Now, a little description of the ship I actually owe you, I guess. What we have are 7 140mm /50 third-year type cannons with 1,400 rounds of ammunition. You can bring 6 to broadside at any given time. Then there is the AA, and that is really pitiful. So 2 twin 25mm and 4 13.2s and even 2 7.7s. And then, as kind of a redeeming factor, at least in theory, are 16 long-lance torpedoes. And they are great, especially for enduring confrontation, except that's not the case because currently that game mode is not there. The funny thing is also that you have, I think this is the only ship that I can see it, is that you get a torpedo mod for the long lances, which now with the torpedo mod are only 74 kilometers per hour fast, which is still really good, and then they have an astonishing range of 28 kilometers. 28 kilometers. So in theory, you can blab those carriers on certain maps, except that's not the case because then the battle time is not enough to actually reach the carriers. Yeah, so that is the IJN Sendai. To be honest, I would love to see those early cruisers being of value. I would love to see them cool ships. They are, but you know, I want them to fight each other. I want the 5.0s to fight the 5.0s. I want the 5.3s to fight the 5.3s. And I can also deal occasionally with an uptier to 5.3. But fighting those monstrously overpowered 5.7s from the perspective of the ship ain't fun. And also, the fun is not the case. It is just too stringent of a game mode. Gaijin wanted to squeeze all the money out of the game mode before it established a healthy player base, because, you know, that backfired quite a lot, and you don't earn money from bots. However, bots are now the biggest player base of War Thunder, and that is the case. So, I told you a little bit about the anti-aircraft firepower of this ship being a little bit on the bad side. But you still have some main guns, right? And so I try my best here, and now I have found the range. And watch this. Beautiful, beautiful hit to the wing with a 140mm shell. And for once, an aircraft doesn't release the bomb in the suicide run, because all too often that is the case. So, was this battle fun to watch? Was this battle really teaching you a lot? Was this exceptional gameplay for this cruiser really awesome? Well, that was not the case, was it? Due to the all aforementioned issues, that was sadly the best battle that I had, and this is right at the end of the spading process. I still had a few battles to go. So there you have it. That's just sadly not the case that this ship is fun. But it could be, but it's developed and implemented by Gaijin. And that's it for me today. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. And you guys should know by now where to subscribe and to hit the like button.